text them, hey, have you ever thought about, like, it's kind of like that, like hey, how you doing? How are the kids? Hey, have you ever thought about it? ... And he calls me right away.
Yeah.
He's like, what'd you do? What are you feeling? Have you planned it? Like, he asked me all those questions you ask, and not in a judgmental way, but it was the first time I was like, oh, I'm not alone. It was like a first like click off where I was like, oh, okay. So it's okay that I did this. It's okay that I sought this out, because the thing that stopped me, and this still, it still struggles, because my wife was in Spring Branch doing her practice, right? Wasn't going to get home till 7 or 8. I have to pick up the kids at 3, and they'd be at the elementary school. I pull up, they come in, hey, love you guys, drive home. I mean, at what point would they get called? Like, it's 3:30.
You start thinking about
4,
all these things. Yeah.
5:30. The kids are at school. They're calling my phone. They can't answer. Who are they going to call?
Episode 2, Mitch Royer.
Hell
What's
yeah.
going on?
Hey, Shawn, man. Hey, cheers, brother.
Cheers.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here. This is awesome. I love it. What are we drinking here? You brought me this.
Yeah, I mean,
beautiful
you
bottle.
missed the Texas Whiskey Festival, the largest whiskey festival in Texas. So I felt bad for you. So I brought you an official Texas Whiskey Festival hat. And then this is one of the newer brands in Texas called Fierce Whiskers. It's in North Austin. It's one of my favorites because it's got a good taste, but it's also keeps it just under 100 proof, so you can drink 4 or 5 without feeling too bad. But when you start getting in the 110s, I was going to grab a cast strength Still Austin, and I'm like, I'd like to have a couple more than just one at this point. So
I was just telling you what Rick Anstrom did from my first episode. So Rick, he knows these Ukrainian guys. We won't talk about how or why. but right before we did the episode 1, Rick pulls me aside. I think he pulled Brock in there too, and he's like, all right. So he was drinking with these Ukrainians, and he says, you want to know how you really get drunk fast? He goes, take a gulp of that whiskey, but don't swallow it. Swish it around in your mouth for 30 seconds, and then swallow it. So within 5 minutes of that fucking podcast, I was starting to feel drunk. And I was looking at him across the table like, you son of a bitch.
I think it would have
my
been
first episode.
I mean, that episode, I listened to it, and it was really good. I mean, I don't know if I'll ever go into the psychedelic realm, because I haven't had that type of trauma that you guys are describing, at least, at that heavy of a level. But I thought it would have been cool if you guys were like on shrooms while you were doing the pod.
I thought about that.
That would have been pretty wild.
About that for the first episode.
Yeah.
Just be like, bro, these lights are so beautiful.
Well, I think what I liked a lot was kind of the connection between, I think what is lost in a lot of masculine men like you guys, SEALs that are coming back from war and experiencing that type of thing. Because I've never experienced war. I was never in the military, not at that level. And being able to come back and find something that connects you, kind of grounds you back, I'm like all for it. Like, go for it. I wish there was easier ways and access for people. But what I loved what he was talking about, I forget, he was talking about his encounter with God, the God experience.
Right.
And which is kind of crazy when you talk about the things that you guys have seen and experienced, and to be able to go like have an encounter with your creator. It's pretty wild. And hearing that was like really encouraging, because I think what, Christianity needs, what the church needs is a lot more masculine men to come in and say, hey, we're going to be followers of Jesus. We're going to we're not perfect. We're going to drink whiskey and we're going to cuss and we're going to do those things, but we're going to really get to know people and we're going to have a relationship. Right. That's how Christ intended it. And I think even he talked about that, the original church and how Christ intended the church. So not to go super religious right away, but, that's kind of my background. I was a 3rd generation pastor before I got into literary and got into events and got into the event production side. And it's hard to break yourself from it.
So what does that look like? 3rd generation ministry. Okay. So You always hear about the girls that are raised.
Yeah. My wife was one of them, actually. My wife was a missionary kid. She was a pastor's kid too. Yeah, I was never a rebellious teenager or pastor's kid. I always was able, the reason that people rebel, the reason that pastors' kids have such trouble is that they're told for so long, they're under a microscope with the church. The pastors, it's not just them, it's your whole family that's involved. And so what my dad was really good at doing, so my granddad was a pastor, but he got into ministry late in life. My dad was always, like, he tells this story, it gives me still goosebumps. When he was 3, he was in the hospital and he felt like God called him to be a preacher of the word. Well, he said that God spoke to him in whatever way it was
why was he in a hospital?
He had this weird, now you would say it's like extreme anxiety, I think, where
panic attack?
Where he'd lose feeling in his legs and they never knew why. And so, this was in probably the 60s, right? So they didn't really know what was going on. And so he said he encountered God, and God said, you're going to see the Bible different, and this is going to be what you do. And my dad should have been, my dad's a businessman, entrepreneur. He's always been super smart. And that's how a lot of the times, he was like the first church growth guru of churches, where he'd explode these churches from being dead and dying to reviving them and being thriving churches. But what he did that was so different was he never made it, he always protected us. So he always allowed us to be who we were. And a lot of churches, he got into trouble because they'd be like, hey, I didn't see your son in Sunday school, or he was acting rambunctious. I had probably what you would call ADHD undiagnosed when I was a kid, like most probably little boys. But, whenever we get criticized, he'd be like, no, that's not happening. He always had our back, and still to this day, but anyway, he's a very strong personality. And so that just made him such that, like, the way that the gospel needs to be told, it was never the legalistic side of it. Hey, go to, don't smoke, drink, or chew, or go with girls for do type of thing. It was always just very much, he was able to separate Jesus from the rest of the crap that comes with politics and religion and all the stuff that Jesus talks about in the Gospels. So for me, I always separated the two. So I was never, if we got hurt as I was in a lot of churches growing up, a lot of different churches, and, some of which were great experiences, some of which were horrible experiences. But I was always able to take that hurt and the pain, that the rejection that we ever felt, and be able to separate the two. Jesus isn't the person who's doing this. Right. He's our greatest ally. So it wasn't the plan. I never wanted to be in ministry. And because my dad was like, do anything you can to make a living. And if you can't, if you're like, hey, I want to be in ministry, then do it. But if you can do anything else and make a living, do it. And so I came into it in college. I went to Indiana University, and I was a communications major. Like, I was planning on a PR major. I was planning on being a publicist. That was kind of the idea, or whatever was going to come to me. I never really wanted to go to college, but I was kind of the thing you do. My brother's a medical doctor. My mom's a PhD. My dad's a PhD. And I was kind of the dumb kid. Like, I had to be homeschooled because they were going to hold me back, because I just wasn't, I probably have dyslexia, that type of thing stuff. So all that to say, I'd never planned on it. And then it got to kind of like I was working at a commercial bank in my junior year of college into my senior year, and they offered me a job. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do this. Like, this doesn't sound like something fun I want to do. And there was an opportunity that opened up in my church, the church we'd been at for a while. And I was really engaged in it. And they're like, you can't pay you much, but at least it gets you through the door, and you can see if you like it, you love it. And so I started working like in, it was when websites were crappy and they were like just starting out, but I was young. So I was like, oh yeah, I know how to do all that. So I was doing like the website and media stuff. And then, I was trying to figure out a way to marry my wife, and I was like, I need to make this amount of money to be able to lock her up. And, she was one of those girls that I met early on, and I was like, she's it. It was very clear. I knew that if I do anything, if I make any decisions, she's going to be the best decision. And if I don't decide to focus on her, I'm going to regret it for the rest of my life. It's the weirdest thing. I don't know if you've ever had an experience like that, but that was like, that's the one thing I could always pull back to is if I don't do this, I'm always going to regret it. And so I was like, okay, solely focused my junior year into senior year of college was like, how do I marry this girl?
No, nothing motivates us more than a good woman.
No joke. No joke. And, from that, I just was like, okay, so I need to make, at the time it was like $600 a week. Now it seems silly, but I needed $600 a week. And so I was making like $200 a week from the church, like nothing. So I was like, I'm going to get a paper route. This is when paper route, it was silly. Paper route.
Wait, did you have a bike or
I had a car.
Okay.
I was still driving around.
Fancy.
I could drive. Yeah, I would have been efficient. So I was going to take on 2 routes, and I had this whole planned out. And like the next week, I got pulled in they have an executive pastor. He's kind of like the manager of all the staff and stuff. And he's like, hey, our children's pastor quit today. I was like, oh, that stinks. Because she was the one I shared an office with. We got really close, and she's like, I go, what are you guys going to do? And they said, well, she recommended you for the job. And I was like, that's stupid. Like, I am not qualified for anything like this. And they said, I think if you think about it, we'll talk to the board, but if you want it, it's yours. And they paid just enough so I didn't have to take the paper out. And I was like, all right, deal, let's do it. I guess I'm a children's pastor now. And so a children's pastor, anybody who's not in the church, they're always like, what is that? So basically I just typically say like youth pastor, but I would program, manage, do events of anything from birth to 5th grade was the age group. Okay. So, in our church, we were running probably 300 kids. So it was a pretty big ministry to take on. And so I'm just a big event guy. So it's like, if I was in 3rd grade, what would I want to experience? And so I would take over the church and do these huge like fall festivals and, just a ton of stuff that was like basically the things that you go as a kid, that's what you want. Hey, I want a huge bounce cat. And this is when bounce houses were just starting out. So like very rare to see them. Now you see them in every backyard, right? But at the time it was like, I just blew it up in the lobby and we played, Elf on the movie screen and like just popcorn, cotton candy, and just all the cool things that you're like, I want a fair, and I don't want kids to have to pay a dime for it, and it blew up in a good way. It was just one of those things where I was like, oh, I'm good at this.
Yeah, a knack for it.
Yeah. I was never good at the spiritual stuff. I was never good at theology or analyzing scripture, but with kids, it's pretty basic. Hey, we're sinners, we sin. We need Jesus,
right.
And that's what I like. And
at the same time, you're still a kid yourself.
Yeah.
Like fresh out of college.
I was 20 when I took the job, 21 when I really got it.
You don't have anything to relate, theology, religious theology to. You don't have any life experiences.
I didn't. And I think I thought I did, and at the time I thought I was pretty badass, so then after I graduated, I married my wife and, it was just kind of like a whirlwind after that. Basically, it was just kind of like, I'll make it work, whatever we got to do. And I started moving I got a job at this huge church in Chicago. And it was like, that's the dream. We're living in downtown Chicago as newlyweds. And it turned out to be just a shit show. Like basically I got hired and it was like kind of one of those things where it just became, it was obvious they didn't really want me.
Well, yeah, you're a Packer fan, bro. I did my homework.
Yeah, I'm a Packer by marriage.
They fucking hated you.
Yeah, they hate me. Are you? What kind of fan are you? Are you a Packer fan?
I'm a Packer
fan.
fan.
Oh, okay, cool.
My dad's family is all from Wisconsin.
Oh, okay.
So I went to college in Wisconsin, and I just I fell in love. Texans are going to hate me, but I just never liked the Dallas Cowboys or the Texans. I liked the Oilers way back in the day when I was really little, and then they were gone. They shipped off to Tennessee, became the Titans, and then so it was like, all right, Cowboys, Texans.
And that was during their heyday, too. Like, it was crazy to not be a Cowboys fan. Have you ever been to Lambeau?
Yeah. I actually did my buddy Chad Conley, he'll be on here probably like 3rd or 4th guest. He started a foundation called 50 for the Fallen, where they do 50-mile rucks in big, large groups, like around a city or wherever. And they do it to raise awareness for veterans that are like struggling with a lot of mental issues and maybe suicide thoughts, whatever it is. Like they're raising awareness for that. So his organization has grown pretty large at this point. And so he invited me out to one of their 50s where it culminated. So it started at 7 p.m. the Saturday night, and you rucked all the way through the night. I think the temperature was like 35 degrees or something like that. It was cold.
In Lambeau?
So you rucked 50 miles through the night, and it ended at halftime at Lambeau Field.
Oh, that's badass.
And we got to go out on a 50-yard line and in front of all the screaming fans. I think they were playing the Rams that day, and it was incredible.
Oh,
it was the most painful thing I've ever done. I've run a marathon. I've never done anything over that. But
50-mile run.
Walking 50 miles is
How much weight painful. You put on?
It's just up to you.
Yeah.
Like you can, I think they say, start with 40, drop down, and you're gonna drop it down as it goes. Most people, some of those dudes are hardcore though. They're like they do these all the time, and they're like, nope.
Throw 40 on or 100 on. That's
like they're
wild.
hardcore. Like
Well,
I used to be a
them.
SEAL, and I'm like, fuck this, dude. Like
I just wear the backpack and act like something's in it.
Well, I wore way too many layers because I'm like, all
it's
right,
freezing,
rucking, it's not that fucking. I'm not gonna get that hot. I was fucking hot, dude. It was like. I mean, all my underlayers got drenched with sweat, and so then I'm like zipping down to cool down, and then I'm like freezing, and I zip back up. I did like 40 miles of that like the whole time, and
it's miserable.
And then my knees are locking up, my feet are in such pain, and so I'm like walking into Lambeau, just like, and there's like all these screaming fans, and I'm trying to look tough, and I'm like a little baby.
What year was that? Was that recently?
Fuck, I guess it was a couple of years ago now.
Damn, how do they time it perfectly? Did you guys end early, or was it legitimately like we finished mile 50 at the 50?
Well, the guys that are leading this, they're making sure we're gonna hit there, and so we hit just in time. We actually got there early, so we had to wait like 20 minutes on our feet. We're waiting at the gate. Security wouldn't let us through. We're like, fucking let us through, dude. And then you walk out, and it's just like,
That's so
Chad
cool,
gave
man.
a badass speech. Like
That's cool.
You'll meet him someday. He gives the best, most intense, passionate speeches you've ever seen.
I love that.
Especially when he's talking about veterans, like he'll start crying during the fucking speech, and you're just like, dude, it's like watching Denzel. It's crazy.
I wish that. I mean, maybe I'm finding it. I just turned 40, and I still feel like I'm a little bit rudderless. Where it's like, I wish I had that type of passion for one thing, where it's like, this is what I do.
Yeah.
So like, I'm super envious of a guy like that just has some drive to say, hey, we're going to raise awareness. I mean, you guys were talking about it, the first episode, about just the amount of just your loss. You talk about the 3 years of just being, I was just completely lost. And I can imagine on a very micro level, because personally I've been dealing with a lot of the identity stuff, especially getting out of ministry. I didn't realize it would be such a thing, but you do that for so long, and it's like, who am I?
You're playing catch up with the rest of the world.
Yeah. And going like, but on a deeper level, the trauma that you guys experience, like my desire, I have a buddy, his name's Nate Boyer, and he was Army Ranger. He started he played for UT. He was like, they call him the oldest rookie. He started at UT at like 31 as a long snapper, and then got signed to a rookie contract at the Seattle Seahawks. Anyway, he took that and he started this charity called MVP, merging vets and players. And what he realized was, because he was in the player realm, and he's from the veteran space, was that once you're out of sports, especially D1, even if you don't go professional, you don't really have any purpose anymore. Your life was, I'm going to do this every single day. And he realized as a veteran, it's the same exact thing. And so what he started doing was organizing these workouts with veterans and former players. And it started out a lot of professional football players, and because he was living in LA. And it just became a huge thing. And so now, like with Cleats for a Cause, there's all these players winning MVP. But like that type of thing where it's like, man, I don't have that. Where I kind of feel a little lost in the sense like, man, I just wish I had something that I could care about that much, that I just know this is where I'm supposed to be. Similar to what I was saying, like with finding my wife and going, this is the one decision I know I need to make.
Yeah.
And, so in your experience, you came in now you're doing what you're great at, but what is that for you? Do you have that
So for me, this interesting. I just saw this quote the other day. I can't remember it verbatim, but basically it said, "The path doesn't present itself until you take that leap of faith." Right? And that stuck with me. I can't forget it. It was something along those lines. And it's like, because my whole life I was waiting for the same thing. I'm waiting for a sign, something that says, this is what you're meant to do. This is the way. And like, so for me growing up, since I was a little kid, I knew I wanted to be a Navy SEAL. Right? Even my uncle, he's like, dude, when you were like 10, I asked you what you wanted to be, and you're like a Navy SEAL. And I'm like, he's like, I looked at it like a little kid saying, I want to be an astronaut. You know, it's like, cool. You know.
Did you come from a military family?
No, not really. My brother was in the Air Force, you know, but
it wasn't like that.
No, nothing crazy. Huh. I just knew it. I was like, this is the hardest thing out there. I want to do that. I love the ocean. Let's go. And so, so for me, in growing up, I always thought like I was going to be a lifelong SEAL. Just going to make it in, and I'm going to make a career out of it. That's going to be my life, and I'm going to be over. But then when I got in, I realized pretty quickly, I'm like, I don't want to do this the rest of my life. There's so many more experiences out there that I want to experience. I don't want to just be relegated to one thing my whole life. I feel like you only have so many prime years to try things, and then eventually, I mean, there's always going to be things you can fall into at any age, but I feel like your prime years, you want to be trying as many things as you can, right? And so, you know, when I got out, I didn't really have a plan. I thought I did, and it fell apart, and thank God it did, because everything that came after that is because it fell apart for me. And so it's like,
so what was the plan? Because so when did you go in? How old were you when you got in?
I was a little bit older. I was 25.
Okay.
So I
came in. You went to college and did that whole
I did
thing?
college. I had a degree. I was going to give it a shot, my degree, to see if I could make any money. And just like you said, like there's not much money in a degree anymore. Like most people didn't even care what my degree was in.
Yeah.
They just cared that I had a 4-year degree. And then a lot of places don't even care if you have a 4-year degree. They actually prefer if you don't. Yeah. Because nowadays, with everything going on in these universities, they're like, I don't want somebody coming in, bringing in a bad attitude or something they've been indoctrinated into, entitlement, right? I'd rather have somebody that has 4 years of experience, you know? So, so I tried it. It didn't work out. And then, you know, I gave this one, I got a promotion down in Key West in this last job, one of the last jobs I had. And I said, if I can't be happy in Key West, I'm not going to be happy anywhere. Yeah. And so within 9 months, I was staring at the clock on the wall. I was praying for a hurricane to hit Key West so I could not have to go to work. And I was like, all right, that's a sign. Like, I need to get out of here. And so, I dipped into the Navy and I left, and 8 years, got out, and then I'm like, fuck. Because I thought that was going to be my whole life. I thought I was just, that's it. This is all I'm going to do. And then
what happened?
I just knew I needed to get out.
Yeah.
You know, like I gave up a pretty substantial bonus.
Yeah.
And a higher rank to get out. And, you know, and that's hard. Yeah. You know, because you feel like you're letting your boys down, you know, like these guys become family. And it's just like any family. If you try to leave the tribe, it's like you're letting them down, you know? So I felt really bad. It took a long time for me to kind of like deal with a lot of that stuff. And so I'm sure it's similar to you leaving the ministry and the church. It's like, you know, people take it as an attack on them personally, right?
That's exactly right.
You know? And so, I mean, and that's where you got to have a lot of very, you know, strong willpower and self-talk, right? So you have to say like, no, I know in my gut I'm not meant to be here right now. I have to decide. I have to go find where that is. And it might take me a long time to find it, but I'll find it. And so that's what I did. And then I just kept doing things. I kept trying things. Got a job enough to make enough money. Yeah. All right. Then
did you come to Austin right away?
Austin area.
Austin area. Okay.
Yeah. So, so that's kind of like, you know, how I got into it. And then I just kept doing things. And then eventually I got to the point, because like, you know, in the teams, they teach you not to speak about it. Like, don't advertise you're a Navy SEAL. Don't do this, don't do that. But a lot of times, like, depending on what these guys end up doing, they don't have a choice. The word gets out there without their approval that there's a Navy SEAL over here. There's a Navy SEAL working over here. And, you know, like, before you know it, it's out there. It's public knowledge. And it's like, well, fuck, man. You know?
Yeah.
So, like, I know I wasn't supposed to talk about this. Yeah. I get it. It's taboo. right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's out there now, and you know, I'm not ashamed of what I did in any regard. So I'm just going to be very careful about what I say when I'm on here, right? I'm not talking. I'm not using names. I'm not using locations. I'm not talking about, you know, tactics that could get anybody hurt downrange.
Yeah.
Like I have very strict guidelines in my mind of what I'm going to be able to say and what I'm not. But I want to live my life too at the same time. And you know, if they know I am, whatever, you know. So that's where I'm at now. And then I'm just not saying no to anything. We talked about this on episode 1, but it's like, I'm tired of fucking shying away from shit.
Yeah.
I'm tired of being a pussy. And, you know, it's like, you can label it however you want. Oh, I'm not doing that. That's, you know, that's whatever, you know, but it's like, no, you're actually just shying away from it. Like, so that's what I had to come to terms with myself. And then once I got to that point, I'm like, once you take that wall away from you, it's like you're open. Like, let's go. My buddy Chad called me up the other day. He's like, hey, dude, I want to do a live stream real quick for Memorial Day. Can you jump on? For the last fucking 7-8 years, I would have said, hell no, dude. Have fun with that. I'll see you next time you come to Austin. But I was like, fuck it, let's do it. Had fun, had a blast, got to talk to my boy. You know, we never have time for each other. So it's like,
well, it's the people like you that like need to be the ones that are public and speaking and talking and doing this. But putting yourself out there, that's just not in your DNA. You know, you've been being told for so long that's like, no, you're just going to be that quiet killer, basically. And now it's at a point where it's like, man, there's stuff that you have, that you've experienced, that you're continually experiencing, that people need to hear. And that's what I felt like listening to the first episode was just like, man, I can't wait to see episode 100, episode 150. Like, that's where you're really going to start digging in and getting cooler guests than just this redheaded dude that's a literary agent, you know. That I think ultimately that's a cool calling, where you're just like, hey, I'm just going to be the yes man. I'm going to say yes to everything, and we'll see where it heads. But I think there's also a level of, you have a day job, you're stable too. I think what happens right now, at least, you know, being in my world, I talk to so many influencers, I'll put that in quotes, influencers that have garnered hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram or TikTok, and there's not much substance there. They're not really doing anything, and they've never really experienced real struggle. So a lot of the stuff that they're teaching or telling or influencing has nothing to do with anything of substance, of like, how do I now all they're really driving people to is to become like them, is to become another influencer and another influencer. And what I think my desire in my heart is to be able to help people that need to tell their story, that should tell their story. A lot of people want to write books. A lot of people want to tell their story, but those aren't necessarily the people that should. It's the people that I'm finding now that are like, no, you have something special that the rest of the world needs to know. My job is to convince you to do that, because it's just one avenue. And and maybe that comes with purpose too. So in 2019, so to spare all the 12 years of details of being in ministry, of being, this is my life, I'm Pastor Mitch, I'm this or I'm that.
It was a chapter.
Yeah,
Mitch's life.
Chapter. Great. Yeah,
Moving
that's a
on to
great
the
way.
next
It's a long chapter that I never wanted. I look back, I remember it's 12 years, and I sat with my wife and I said, it's provided for us. We're in Austin now because of it, because I started working at Austin Ridge. They recruited me to come to Austin, and I can't be more grateful for that, because Austin's where we were meant to be. You know, it's like when we moved here, I felt it's the first time I felt settled. I've always been like, okay, let's go to the Pacific Northwest. Let's move here. Let's move there. 3 to 4 years is about it for me in everywhere I've ever lived. And this was the first time I was like, no, this is home. And I just needed to find a way to provide, because all I knew was ministry. And I mean, I did sales and market. There was a lot of times where, like, when we started churches or we did other stuff where I wasn't making anything. And so I had to start a business or I had to do this. But it was always like, you patchwork your life together. Oh, I made enough for us to be good. And I just didn't want to live that way anymore. I didn't want to live in a world where it was like, it's good enough. You know, I always felt like God meant for me to be bigger, greater, all that stuff. So in 2019, I left this church called Life Austin. It was the sweetest gig you could ever imagine. If you were going to write, hey, Mitch, 12 years from now, this is what you're going to do. Speak at conferences. You're going to be the most. I was a big deal in this world, in the children's ministry world, which sounds so silly now to even talk about. But it was like, I was the guy that they would call to do conferences, and I was consulting and I was doing all these things. That would have been like, that's the dream. But when I was there, it was like, this is it. And I know God doesn't call us to be like, this is it. He's a big God, man. Like, there's more to life than this. So through a series of events, I broke a Guinness World Record once Easter Sunday, and it was really cool, but I got done with it. I hit all the goals that I said I sought out to do, and it was like, this is it. And it left me so empty, and I realized that I'd been doing this the last 12 years for what? And yeah, there's been impact. There's been encounters with God. Those nothing to take away, but I just felt like I was meant for so much more. And I never knew why, I never knew what, but because I was so good at putting together these giant events for kids, community-wide events, 10,000 people showed up for, and stuff like that, that I just had a knack to know this is going to be cool. I just was like, all right, this has to be it. And so I got asked to be a part of an event called Go Wheels Up. In 2019, it was Air Show Car Show Music Festival in San Marcos, Texas. It was going to be a 3-day event.
No pressure.
Yeah, right? I got invited. They're like, hey, you're really good at volunteers because that's how you run a ministry. Hey, why don't you come help us? It was my buddy. His name's Clay Corrin. He used to play piano for Pat Green, Phil Vassar. Like, he was a touring musician for years. And he's like, and he's got a knack for that too, for creating cool things, experiences. And he goes, just come be a part of it. It's going to be huge. We're going to make millions of dollars, all that stuff. So it's Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday. Friday night, we're doing this like VIP event. There's 500 people. People pulled up their Lambos. This was before, the Elons and Joe Rogan. This was like old money Austin, right? Like, it was like, oh shoot, this is Steiner Ranch style.
There's some
like
fucking money.
Yeah, it was the first time I was like, oh, there's money here. And they were pulling up their Lambos and stuff, and it was the coolest night. Then all of a sudden, you could see that front come in, and I get a call, and it's like, hey, you got to get, and I had volunteers everywhere on golf carts all over, the flattest of the flat earth airport. And I start hollering, like, we got to get out of here. And so we start like running from this storm that's coming, tornado, like hail, all this stuff. And we're in an airport hangar. And so we spend the next hour and a half in the pouring rain just cutting people's tents because everybody had set up for the night. And it was like wind was blowing in 70 mile an hour, 80 mile an hour winds. These tents were collapsing. And so we wanted to salvage everybody's stuff. So we went from tent to tent to tent, like cutting everything, breaking everything down, trying to salvage what we had. Planes flew over, like we had planes stationed. They like flew into the hangar, and it was chaos. And then the next morning we woke up 3 a.m. They're like, hey, everybody needs to come back 3 a.m. We get there. Everything is just, it looks like it was, ridden hard and put up wet. I mean, it was like flat. We had miles of fence that you had to have up for regulation. So we spent the next 6 or 7 hours rebuilding everything. And I had recruited 150 volunteers to come and run the event with me. And we all had radios, and we got a ton of golf carts. And I start hearing people on the radio calling for one person. And I was like, damn, like, this isn't going to work. Like, logistically, this person is going to be overwhelmed. They're busy doing other stuff. So I basically take over logistics and operations of this 3-day event. And I'm sure some of my friends from this Go Wheels Up are going to say this. I didn't do everything. Of course, everybody had a role, but I took over kind of logistics operations and made the event a success. And
so basically, you're not a big deal, but you're a pretty big deal.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, but
I'm not everything, but I'm pretty
well,
close.
they would have been lost without me, but it's no big deal. No, but
I keep telling people.
But that was the first time I tangibly thought, oh, this is what I'm good at. It was the first time I realized, oh, I'm good at
solving problems.
Yes. So how do you monetize it? And so after that event, it was like, hey man, we lost a bunch of money because it, stormed and everything. People stopped showing up. There's only a point to where people will come worried about rain, right? But we're going to keep doing this. We want you to be a part of the company. And I was like, all right, that's my exit. And so I took over partial ownership of this event company and started running operations. We had a bunch of events, and then COVID hit and shut everything down.
You can't catch a break, man.
No, Shawn, I'm not going to tell you. I've just been through so much, but COVID hits, and I was 50 pounds overweight. I'm a big guy. I'm overweight still, but like 50, 60 pounds overweight. And my wife's an ICU nurse. During the COVID outbreak, she was in the COVID unit, and they didn't know what the hell they were doing. It was like they didn't have enough PPE, so they were, taking off each other's PPE and using it again. Like, it was crazy. She would come home and cry because she was like the last person most people saw die. And I was unemployed, sitting there going like, what the hell am I going to do? Feeling sorry for myself, overweight. I have asthma. I'm like that classic, like redheaded fat kid in school. Every movie has him who's like perseveres, but I had asthma and I was overweight. And Stacy was worried that she was going to bring COVID home. Stacy, my wife.
Right.
And so I made the decision, okay, I can control 2 of my comorbidities. And we can go into the logistics of like what we feel about all the stuff that happened in COVID, but realistically it was like, I'm going to die. That's how they made me feel. And my wife was seeing people die every day, right? So I could control one of those 2 things. I'm always going to have asthma. I cannot be a fat ass, right? And I started watching Joe Rogan, like probably most people did, right? We were just watching clips and seeing all these amazing people come in. And one of those people was named Cameron Haynes, who, I've known for the last 4 years. And he said, if I can do it, anybody can do it. I have a full-time job. I am not anything special. And I was like, you know what? I have all the time in the world. And so I basically lost 60 pounds going, I'm just going to not eat as much, and through that process got to the point where I wasn't in the comorbidity side. And then I was afraid I was going to get fat again. So I was like, well, what do I do? Goggins was like Navy SEALs. They give you this piece of paper that says, these are the things you expected. You got to run 6 miles a day in full gear, right? Like, this is what he said in his book, right? But he says that. And I was like, all right, I'm going to run 6 miles a day. That's what I'm going to do. And so I started running 6 miles a day. Well, I started walking. I should say this. This is how I got into running. I started walking, and I like smoking cigars. And I was like, well, how, an hour to smoke a cigar if you go slow. So I was like, man, 6 miles take me 2 hours to walk. And so I'd carry 2 cigars with me, and I'd smoke cigars in the morning.
On the walk?
On the walk, yeah. 2 cigars.
I've never heard of that.
Dude, this is how I got in shape. Okay, so I'm going to put this workout schedule to every man, because this is how I did it. So I was like, I'm going to walk 6 miles a day. So I got those, like, you can get them from like smoking.com, where you get the ones that are good cigars, but they're like weird. They have like weird discontinued pieces. So it's like,
those are called blunts.
Yeah, no, it's not. No, that would have been a whole different walk. But anyway, they have these like, so you can get them for like 50 cents a piece, but they're good cigars. And so I would take 2, and I would smoke a cigar, and then I'd smoke the next one. And by the time I was done, it was 6 miles. And then I was doing that. You can do that so long before you're like, man, I'm burning through cigars, and and so I started wearing a trash bag, because I wrestled in high school, and that's how we cut weight. So it was like, I'm going to wear a trash bag, and I'm going to lose more weight. Like, it was a whole thing. Smoking cigars. It was the wildest thing. If you saw
neighbors must
from
have been
4
like,
a.m. to
"What?"
6 a.m., that's what I did, right? Because my wife had to leave to the ICU at 6:30. So I had to, and I was watching the kids. So I did this, and then it was like, man, like, I'd like to wake up a little later. And so I was like, I'll run a little bit. So I'd smoke 1 cigar, and then I'd run the rest to get to 6 miles. And then before I knew it, I was like, well, I guess I should just try to keep running. And so I'd run 6 miles. I started running 6 miles every day, to the point where I was like, hey, I'm in pretty good shape. I don't really have a purpose. And then Goggins put out this thing about like 4x4x48, do 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours, right? I was like, oh, that'd be kind of fun. And so I freaking did that. And I started to realize I was like stacking these like things that I was doing that were pushing me so far. But in the midst of my own like despair of the fact that I was a failure because I'd given up my whole new life, started this life that I thought I was going to be hugely successful and be a multimillionaire by the time I was 40, to going, crap, like, is life going to ever come back? You know, is life as we know it is over? That's what we thought.
How many of us get to that point?
Oh my goodness. Like, it doesn't even have to be a COVID experience. I think I'm at the point in my life now, I'm through it enough to go, what an amazing experience God allowed me to have, to be able to go. And then in 2022, so all this stuff's happening. I'm getting in shape. I'm waking up at 5 in the morning, running, maintaining this lifestyle that I love, that I've become to love. And I can't get myself, because at the time I was doing consulting. So I was making a living, right? I was doing like recruitment for churches. So if you have a big church that needs a pastor, you call me and I find that person, I charge a nice fee, right? That's how I made a living.
Sounds like mafia.
Oh, it was super cool.
I got you.
Yeah, you just can't talk about it.
I got you.
Don't worry
come
about
to
it.
me.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Go to
But I was
else.
traveling a whole bunch and I was still maintaining that. And I got really never experienced anything like this in my life. And it sneaks up on you. And I've talked to probably a handful of people about this. So this is a terrible idea, what I'm about to say. But about 2021, 2022, I started feeling this burden. And you couldn't tell. It was like, oh, maybe it's stress from work. I'm traveling a bunch. I'm trying to make a living. My wife had just finished her MP degree. So she's trying to find a job. And like, that's supposed to be the savior of our life. Like, oh, she's going to be a nurse practitioner. I can do whatever the hell I want, you know, like it'll be great. And at that point it was like, she got a job and I was in the best shape of my life. And the kids were in a good school, like everything from the outside looking in, you're like, man, I wish I was Mitch, or I wish I was their family. And I could not break myself. So what I would do is I would work out in the morning. I'd get all cleaned up. I'd take my kids to school. It's about 7:30. My wife would leave for work right after. And I'd go right back into bed. Never to be heard from or seen from again. I'd ignore every phone call. And it just got worse and worse and worse and worse. And before I knew it, it's probably April time, 2022. I got so like in this horrible place of just every day just going, you know, I just can't do it. And what I realized was, so I was about 38, you know, and that I'm not young anymore. I'm in the late 30s. Everything that I was supposed to accomplish in my 30s are now coming to the toll is happening. Like the toll is due. And I get to this point where I'm like, well, fuck, man. Like, is this it? Like, that's the feeling, the burden that I felt. It's like, this is it. My wife has a great job. I'm running 6 miles a day. I take my kids to school and I come home and I can't answer my phone because I just can't deal with anything. Little, big, like whatever it is. It's like, I just can't handle it. And I was like, got to the point, and this was months, and I was carrying deep. There was only one other person I called and I said, hey, if I start canceling things, because you start like, you get invited to a bunch of stuff. It's like, yeah, that sounds awesome. And then you'll cancel last minute. And, you know, before you know it, it's like, becomes just such a burden. It sounds like you understand that, like the feeling of like,
I've been there.
And
you cancel so much, you stop getting invited.
Yes. Where it's like, and nobody's wondering why. So I call, yeah. And then you start, it's a cycle that doesn't stop. Is like, well, now people aren't inviting me. All the friends that I had are like, they've abandoned me. And nobody understands where I'm coming from. Like nobody would ever experience, like nobody knows this feeling that I'm feeling. And it starts to get worse and worse and worse to the point where Friday, I never forget the day. It's a good reason I don't. It was Friday. I dropped the kids off at school. I think we had a really fun weekend planned, and I was just so depressed. And I remember going to the bathroom and going on my phone and going, you know what would be really easy is just, what if it's just like the easiest way to die? And it was the first time that I'd ever had that thought. You know, I've always like, you know, you have those ideations a little bit, like when you start getting really dark, where it's like, man, this would be so much easier if I wasn't here or whatever. But it was the first time I'd ever gone, man, what would be the easiest way? And I was in just such a dark place, and I Googled easiest way to kill yourself. Stupidest thing ever, right? Easiest way to kill yourself in Google. And the only thing I saw were like these suicide hotlines.
Yeah.
And I was like, son of a bitch. I was pissed because Google didn't understand my search. That's how like delusionally dark I was. And so I texted my brother because I knew my brother had told me he struggled with just dealing with life sometimes. It's like, he's a doctor. It's big. Like he's the one person I was like, he's not going to tell anybody. And I text him, hey, have you ever thought about, like, it's kind of like that, like hey, how you doing, how are the kids, hey, have you ever thought about it, ... and he calls me right away. Yeah, he's like, what'd you do, what are you feeling, have you planned it? Like, he asked me all those questions you ask, and not in a judgmental way, but it was the first time I was like, oh, I'm not alone. It was like a first like click off where I was like, oh, okay, so it's okay that I did this. It's okay that I sought this out. Because the thing that stopped me, and it still struggles, because my wife was in Spring Branch doing her practice, right? Wasn't going to get home till 7 or 8. I have to pick up the kids at 3. And they'd be at the elementary school. I pull up, they come in, hey, love you guys, drive home. I mean, at what point would they get called? Like, it's 3:30.
You start thinking about all these things. Yeah.
5:30. The kids are at school. They're calling my phone. They can't answer. Who they're going to call? Stacy? She's seeing patients. And I start thinking about that. And I was like, how selfish I would be to allow my family to experience something like that, so that I don't have to deal with what I have to deal with. Yeah. And so I talked to my brother, and he's like, and he's a doctor. He's like, get on something now. This is what helped me. And so I called my doctor, and I was like, hey, I need help. Can you get me in? And it's the first time. So my wife had this big weekend plan. I think it was the weekend plan with the girls. Like, it was this big trip. I didn't say a word about it because I didn't want to ruin her trip. Like, of course it's going to ruin her trip, right? Yeah. She's going to be worried about me, all that stuff. So I wait until the Monday, and I was like, hey, I probably should tell you what happened. And I tell her about it. Obviously I didn't do anything. It was just that, it was scary. It was that scary moment. But what I had to come to grips with, so get on something that kind of kicks you out of it. That was most helpful. Non-invasive. It was good. It's been good.
What did they give you? Can you talk about it?
Wellbutrin.
Wellbutrin?
Yeah, it's low. I mean, it's what they give people like smoking, and like it's kind of universal, low side effects.
And what did it make you feel like? What did you notice?
I noticed the heaviness. It took months, though. And they told me that.
It took months to
where you start feeling normal.
Okay.
Where it's like, I'm a very creative person. I thrive off of waking up early. I get something on my mind at 4 a.m. I can't go back to sleep. I go downstairs and I'm like, let's create. It just disappeared for years, and I didn't know why. And then I didn't notice it, and then it just started. So they put me on Wellbutrin, a lower dosage, worked it up, but it was like 6 weeks before I was like, oh, it's working. Like, I felt better. Probably a placebo effect. Like, okay, I got something. At least there's something working. Yeah. But about 6 weeks, I started getting excited about things again. Yeah. Where it was like, okay, well, I can do this. Okay, I can do this. Now, thankfully, I didn't go super deep into alcohol or drugs or anything that was like the unhealthy version of what would make me feel better. I probably dug pretty deep into health. Yeah. Like, that was kind of my drug at the time. But ultimately, it took me a good 6 weeks before I was like, okay, things are going to be okay.
Okay. And you don't think that the working out, being on that regimen?
See, that's the thing.
It could have been.
I was doing that still. That's why I was like, I don't understand what's happening to me. Yeah. And that was the first time I was realized that I need to be on something just to balance me out. And I don't think I'll be on it forever. It's not like one of those things, but it made me realize that, okay, because I was lifting, I was running, I was in the best shape of my life. And what I realized was that's not helping. Now, what probably would have helped is a combination of two things. Is I was running alone. I was lifting by myself. Everything was isolated to my world. and the world got smaller and smaller and smaller, especially as you start canceling plans. You know, these guys, I love them, and they reach out to me. I have some of the best friends in the world, and it's crazy. I have friends that will text me where it's like, dude, like that was huge, just to say, hey, how you doing?
Right.
Or where have you been? Or I miss you. Or like those types of, like, you know, those ride or dies, you know, and there's those people out there. And what I realized was it wasn't even about health. I think I struggle with the fact that I was listening to podcasts. I was listening to all the things, all the same stuff of like, health is the future, or health is what's going to get you to a good place mentally. Vitamin D, you got to get out in the sun and all those things. Well, COVID kind of cut me off from people, and that's how I thrive. And so it started in 2020. I just didn't see it coming. And it just started to escalate to the point where now I'm 38 and this is life. This is my life now. And what I would love to see happen, and I think you're doing it and you're at the part of it, is there's an epidemic of late 30s, mid 40s, these men. We are depressed as we can be, and we don't think there's hope. That's why divorce is so high right now, because men in their 40s, we just don't, this is it. And what if this is it isn't that successful? And the scariness of that, of going, what do I do? I'm 40, or I'm in my mid 40s or whatever. And you go, I don't know. And there were many times where I would go on for a run and I would just stop midway and be like, why? You know, what's the point? Yeah. And I think there's an epidemic going on with men. And I think there's starting to become there's a veil that's being lifted, is that we struggle with these things. And I don't want to be like the mental health guru guy, because that's not who I am. I just think that we don't talk about it enough. I think the like, you have been open about it because I've heard you talk about it, but we all talk about the dark place. We all talk about not really having purpose or whatever. It's like, no, I wanted to off myself. Like, that's the reality of where you're at. It's like, do I want to careen my car off the bridge here or not? You know, and those are real things. And there are men everywhere dealing with this, military and not. And we don't have a plan. Nobody has a solution other than you got it. You can do it.
You'll figure it out.
Yeah, you'll figure it out. How many times I heard that? Or I'm worried about you, man. It's like, no, I am too.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't need to hear that.
Well, you know, and I try to, and when I have those discussions with people I know I shouldn't talk about it with, it's like, oh, they've just never experienced something like this. And that's okay. And I don't want to fault people for experiencing that, but I've been waiting for a way to be able to be the voice for men, to be able to say, it's okay. I don't have a solution, but what I can tell you is life would suck without you in it. And I have a very good friend of mine who I'm going to this weekend to go visit. And we kind of lost each other in the last, he got married. I've moved away. I moved in Phoenix, lived in Phoenix, moved away. And the best thing that ever happened to us is to have horrible failures in our lives, because we reconnected. And it's like, dude, this is what I've been missing. I've been missing this brotherhood of saying, dude, you're the only person that knows me like this, that I can tell you, dude, I feel so shitty about myself. And I really desperately want to be better. And he's not going to go, okay, here's the 4 steps to how you fix it. It's like, no, man, like, I just need somebody I can tell this to. And I think ultimately we're so afraid of that. I mean, I would love to hear your solution. I would rather, I'm still an evangelical Christian. I grew up in the church, so it's hard for me to be like, you know what? Let's hit psilocybin. Let's do a DMT. Like, I'm a little hard to get there yet. Maybe I'll get there one day.
We'll get you there.
We'll get you there. Well, but what do you think men need to experience and hear? Because that's the biggest thing.
They need to break down their ego. Ooh, that's the problem. Like, this is what I learned from my experience with psychedelics.
How many times have you taken them?
I mean,
it's not like a regular thing.
I've only done one retreat where it's like administered retreat. But as far as like microdosing and stuff like that, like once I experienced it the first time, I was like, I fucking love this. Mm-hmm. So I did it probably for 2 years, and I would microdose probably 2 to 3 days out of the week. And then I would do like hero doses or, you know, heavy doses on the weekend.
I like that term.
If I could. And I didn't have a lot going on for me back then, so I could get away with it. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, I'm like, I can't do that.
What do you do when you do, like, you're not in a controlled environment? This is like hero doses at your house type thing?
At my house, yeah. So after the kids would be laid down for the night, I'd be like 8, 9, 10 grams of psilocybin mushrooms. I'd just eat them. And then, boom, you blast off. And
what is your ideation? What does it go to? Like, what is your like go to when you go into that spot? Because I assume it's like a trip, right?
It's a trip, and it's like obviously you want to be in a safe space. Some people freak out when they're on them. I actually find a very comfortable place. Like, I mean, a cop car could pull up, and I could have a conversation with the cop, and I'd be much more friendly than I would be if I was not on them. You know what I mean? Like, so. I mean, everybody's different. You kind of got to see how your body reacts to it. Yeah. A lot of people, their body reacts to it like it's poison. It makes them want to puke because they're not used to this, you know, whatever it is. But for me, my body agrees with it. And but I would say, like, the biggest problem, if we're going to help these guys, for one, we need to make communication a priority. Right? We need to, like, guys are guys. Guys are tough guys. I ain't got a problem, you know, whatever. Bullshit. We all got fucking problems.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
Look at Hunter Biden. All right.
Yeah.
He grew up with silver spoon in his fucking mouth. He's a fucking train wreck. Yeah. Right. So it doesn't matter where you're from, what walk of life, what race, what religion, doesn't matter. You got fucking problems, and we need to make it normalized to talk about it. Yeah. It's okay to, like you were saying, your brother was like, what happened? Tell me this, tell me that, tell me that. And you realize for the first time in your life, my brother thought about this at some point, or he knows people.
Or at least he knows people,
Exactly. Yeah. So that's a big part of it, right? And realizing that we're not alone in this feeling. Like I read a post the other day, and it was like, Mr. Beast, all right? The youngest billionaire, 27 years old, the youngest self-made billionaire that didn't come from a family of wealth, right? And it's like, you got all these kids that are like idolize him, they follow him. He's a huge account. It's like, how much of a psychological effect is that going to have on all of them? Right? They're kids right now, but they're like, oh, if he could do it, I could do it. Yeah. When you're a kid, you could think you can do everything. Yeah. Right? That's crazy. So it's like they grow up, they hit 27, they're like, shit, I'm still broke. And then they hit 37, and they're like, fuck, I'm still barely getting by. Like So like social media has a very profound effect on like kids' psychology and like what's going on with their expectations of themselves and society, what they think society expects on them. Like they always talk about women, and they're having these like issues with their bodies because they, you know, they're constantly looking at these supermodels and everybody they see that's in front of the camera is just gorgeous, like right, and it's like, well, I'm not that. So then they start to have these problems and stuff like that. Well, men are the same thing. Men go through the same thing. They see guys with all this success and they've had, you know, all of these this resume that's just like stellar. But what they don't understand is the guy that you're jealous of or you're envying, like that guy started in your shoes. Maybe not at the same age as you are, but he started there too. At one point, he was in your shoes going, fuck, what do I don't have anything. I don't have any experience. I don't have anything, you know what I mean? But like, you just start down a road, accomplish something, sweet. All right, from there, let's accomplish this. Okay, now I did that. Now let's go to here. And before you know it, like once you get into this grind of just like, I did it. I did it. I did it. Eventually you're going to look back and you're going to be filling out your resume or updating it. And you're going to be like, holy fuck, I'm that guy that I fucking idolized. Yeah. And you just, you know, I talked about in the last one, but like, just be patient. Like, understand this stuff doesn't all happen for people at the same point in their life. And like what you're seeing on social media or whatever, those are anomalies. That's why they're on social media. That's why there's articles that are made about them. That's an anomaly. The rest of us, 99.99999% of us, are in your exact shoes. And some people don't make it until they hit 60, right? Like, what are they saying? Like the KFC, the Kentucky Fried Chicken guy? Yeah.
Colonel Sanders.
Colonel Sanders, like
Yeah.
the legit guy.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't even start until he was like 61 or some
Yeah.
crazy number. It's just like failure, denial. Nobody wanted to help him, and then
Yeah.
boom, he did it. You know, and it's just like, I don't know if they could teach anything. I guess maybe that could be something that they could add to the curriculum for men's education. Is like it's okay if it takes you longer. It doesn't make you a failure. Just be patient. Like life is gonna hit you. Life is fucking hard today.
Yeah.
Like when I was a kid, I was like, if I can just make $100,000, I'm gonna be set for life.
Oh
you know
yeah.
what I mean,
Oh yeah.
$100,000. You're hurting right now.
Yeah.
Like seriously.
Yeah.
So it's like, just be patient. And like what I would recommend to people that are out there that are struggling is like, find things that you can, like side hustles that you can do, that you can work into your schedule, but still maintain your family, right? Because you still have to give your family quality time. So I would recommend like, okay, you have your safe job. This is what we're going to pay the bills with. Okay. It's just enough to get by, right?
Which is basically right. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, what can I do? Where I got time on the weekends, I got time in the evenings, or I got time in the morning. Whatever it is, like find something. There's so many side hustles out there that people can do that'll help them just make a little bit extra. And it's like a snowball effect. That little bit, now with that little bit extra, I can do this. And then that adds a little bit more, and that snowball just keeps growing and growing. And then eventually you look back, you're like, damn, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy. And so if I could give anybody advice, patience.
Yeah. I think that is probably the one thing that I don't have and most men don't have, right? Like, but I think if you can look at it from that perspective, I had somebody tell me, because being in ministry, you're kind of limited on income, is like extras. Like, how do you monetize the things that I know? And I talked to my mentor at the time, and he told me, you find a need, you fill the need. It doesn't matter what it is. And work is work. There's honor in that. Don't. I had a guy recently that I've known for years. He knew me in the church world, and I saw him at this restaurant, and I did door dashing for a while because I was like, hey, I wonder how much money I can make, right? And I dropped off DoorDash.
How much money can you make?
Not much. Not enough. I went on a Sunday night and I was like, hey, Stace, we don't have anything going on. Can I just go DoorDash? Like, legitimately, that's because it's so easy to sign up. I was like, I just want to see. It's like a social experiment. I don't have any like pride about it. It's like, I don't care. You're going to pay me $10 or whatever. I made $32 in an hour and a half. And I was like, okay, not for me. So, I mean, it's $20-ish
$20 an hour.
Anyway, this guy, I was in his neighborhood because I know the neighborhood. I have friends who swim in their pools over here. And I pull up in my car, I walk out, I drop the thing off, take a picture. That's what you have to do. Walk in my car and leave. Doesn't say hello. I saw him. Doesn't wave, doesn't anything. I go to this, I was at like a barbecue place, and he goes, hey, were you door dashing the other day? And I was like, yeah, man. Just seeing how it was going. And he goes, is everything okay?
Oh, fuck, man. People got to stop doing that.
Yes.
All right?
Are you sure? Is everything all right? I was like, are you going to offer me a job that pays? Like, okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how to put myself out there, but I think ultimately what I've come to realize is money is easy to make. You can find a way. There's a way to do it. You just have to probably start looking at yourself and go, am I okay dropping pizzas off at my friend's house, and them not know? Are you okay door dashing? Are you okay doing Lyft and people asking you, hey, how long you been doing that? Why do you do this? And what? And you want to defend yourself and say, no, well, I was this guy and I was this. For me, it's more of a perspective of I'm doing what I love right now. And ultimately, if I continue down this route, like, I don't care about money. And in a lot of ways, I don't. I feel pretty comfortable going, you know what I get to do? So from the depression, from this space, what God did, and so I talk about God in this, I hated God during this time frame too. So like 2020, 2021, 2024, where I was like, this guy's gone.
What was your age during those?
So 2022, I was 38. I just turned 40 in 2024.
Okay.
So 37 to 36 at 2020 to now I'm 40. So a 4-year span. I started feeling the burden of he's abandoned me. This God that I've served my whole life, he doesn't care. All the things that I thought that mattered don't matter. Like that's where I got. And so I talk about God's ultimate plan, but like this is the last few months where I'm like, okay, I can get back to understanding like God doesn't have anything to do with it. What he has to do is like, he loves me, and that's what he can guarantee. He created me. I am who I am because he created me this way, and he loves me unconditionally. That's what you can guarantee. You're not going to guarantee being a millionaire. Like that's silly when you actually think it. When you actually break it down, you're like, this is crazy. So from 38, I start getting my creative juices back because I start getting on some meds, break the curse of like the veil starting to lift. And I go, I know a ton of people, and I go to Eugene, Oregon. This is where the story kind of gets a little crazy. This is how I got today. So this is all for a purpose, Shawn, I promise.
I believe
so stick with me.
You know what I noticed real quick before you start this?
Yeah.
At this point in your life is when you started asking for help.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Bingo. I thought I got this. I got this. Don't worry about it. I'm good. All these things. When I started going, man, I'm not where I want to be. And I feel like you get to the value of like, I'm worth more dead than alive. Best thing that ever happened to me. Because that is bottom. When you start going life, and I have kids that love me, I have a wife that adores me. I think she still does, all those things. I was 18 years. We're celebrating 18 years in June of marriage. Ultimately, all those things, it's like, I have the greatest life. So what's wrong with me? And what I came to grips with was, once I started to realize I have no control over the environment around me, all I can really control is me, my attitude, my heart, my effort and attitude. That's what I tell my kids all the time. Mm-hmm. Those are the two things. What can you control today? They're going in for a test. I want to go do this. My daughter just turned 13. Everything's a big deal, right? What can you control? Mm-hmm. Effort. And I make them tell me effort, attitude. That's all you can control. And so I take those same things to heart, and I say, once I start reaching out and I broke the haze of the creative, like where I was finally like, I feel like myself again. I started getting ideas, and those ideas became big ideas, and I started executing on those ideas. So craziest way I got into literary agency. So this is how I become a lit agent. So this will put a nice little...
First off, explain what a literary agent is.
Great questions. Great question, Shawn. Nobody knows.
First off, you guys need to come up with a better name than literary agent.
Here's
you
what
gotta give
I'm
it a much cooler name.
Here's what I'm going to say. I would love to hear your idea of a great name for it. I'm a literary and entertainment agent. So what that means, does that sound a little cooler? So I basically say, Shawn, you need to write a book. And you're like, I can't. I don't know. Nobody wants to hear it. Yes, they do. You should sign with me. We'll get you a ghostwriter. We'll get you set up with I'll get you a book deal, and we'll sell that book to a publisher. You're going to be famous. You're going to start telling stories. You're going to go on all the podcasts. And this is the story. It's like, hey, let's build your brand with a book. Mm-hmm. Or you already have a brand. Let's solidify you to be legit with an extra tool in your tool belt. Let's put that book there because that helps. So I'm a brand builder is what I would say. So literary is author, maybe new author, aspiring author comes to me, and I take that book, I take that idea, and I sell it to a publisher. Or there's only like 4 big publishers anymore. It's kind of smaller. Or we find a way to do it hybrid, which is you go under a publishing arm that we own, and we publish it through our publishing arm. And it's still a legit published author book, except the marketing piece, you pay for the printing. Like there's other things that you have, there's cost to it. So there's like 2 different ways to do it that I do. But I represent you. As the author, I represent you. And so what I've become good at is going, Shawn, what do you like? Oh, you like working out. Hey, I'm going to get you a deal with Rogue. And if I present that to you and you like that deal, then I get 15%. You good with that? Cool. Let's do a brand deal. So I started doing those types of things. And that's what gets exciting. Or, Shawn, you're really good at training people. Let's do a Shawn training boot camp. We'll charge $500 a person for 5 hours or 2 hours of your time. And I'll produce it. And this is the money that I'm going to take. I'm going to take profit from this. You're going to get profit. And we're going to have a full experience from it. And I cultivate those things. That's kind of more the event stuff.
Okay.
So, but that I assume is all agent. Like, hey, if I sign you as a literary agent, you may have an agent already. You may not. You may have a manager. You may already have like somebody from CAA, the big boys, WME, those types of things. But I get in through literary. A lot of these people don't know books. So I come in and I say, hey, let me sign you this way. And I lock you in with a right to work deal. It's not like a secret. It's like, hey, I want to be able to go, hey, I have this brand that wants to have you associated with that brand. And I bring it to you. I've earned this. I've worked hard for it. And then I can represent you in that side. So there's multiple ways to do it. But first and foremost, books. I want to get your book. So that's good. So
are you trying to sell me?
Yeah,
on a book
Shawn,
right
you
now?
definitely need to do a book. I'm no
settle down.
joke, dude. Like,
You're good. Like, shit, maybe I do need a book.
well, what I do is I start with whiskey.
No shit. Like, this gets them every time.
Gets them every time. So we start with whiskey, and then we work into how we're going to do books. So I go to people because it's Austin, and I didn't plan this. So this is where God comes in. Austin's become a hub for celebrity. There are celebrities everywhere. No. I was at a barbecue place in East Austin for a buddy's birthday, and Elijah Wood was there. Frodo.
Elijah Wood?
Yeah.
He was like, here in Austin?
Yeah, he lives here.
He lives in Austin?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, I saw him, and I kept looking at him.
Did you ever see The Good Son?
Oh.
With Macaulay Culkin?
100% I did.
Dude, that movie.
Terrifying.
That movie scarred me. I tried to make that gun. You remember the gun that shoots bolts or whatever?
100%, yeah.
That he killed the dog with?
That's terrifying that you did that. But also, we all did.
Dude, I told you I wanted to be a Navy SEAL. All right? I spent months trying to figure this thing out.
You didn't figure it out?
I got
you did?
Close. My dad wouldn't give me the part I needed.
What'd you need, like compression? You needed CO2 or something?
Yeah.
So we used to have potato guns. And we figured out ignition. So we'd build these big PVC pipe potato guns, and we'd have a starter on it from like a grill. And basically what we did was, that's
amazing.
So we'd unscrew the bottom. You'd spray aerosol. You just load it up with aerosol. You close it up real fast, put the potatoes already in, and you spark it, and boom.
That's it.
That's all we did.
How far would it fly?
I mean, hundreds of feet. One time we shot it in our house in Granger. In the 90s, we just built a new one, and we shot it, and we couldn't find where it went. I mean, it went so far.
Okay, next time you come on, we're doing it. Bring it.
Let's build one and
we'll videotape it.
Potato guns are the best. So all that to say, there's a few things. So I was getting in shape, obviously horribly depressed, but I used to live in Eugene, Oregon. When I was a kid in elementary school, my dad had this church that he revived from nothing and built this extraordinary in like 3-4 years. So it was like my elementary, this is where I got baptized. This was like the formidable years of my life of Christianity and like friends. Still talk to my best friend from that time frame. Like, it's just like, that's life. Eugene, Oregon is like my space.
Yeah. So
when I go there, it's peace. And we go back for weddings and funerals. You know, it's like, we still have family friends there. So I went back in 2022 for a wedding. Girls that I held as babies are getting married. That's how old I've gotten, you know, that type of thing. Wow, so they're getting married. Old, yeah, so old. My kids my daughter was the flower girl. My son was the ring bearer, like that type of vibe. It's the coolest. Well, I'm a big fan of Cam Haynes. He lives in Eugene, Oregon. So I knew this, and I go, basically he's an uncle. Scott's like, what are you going to do? I was there I like to give a couple extra days on the front and back end so I can show my family the coast, and it's just fun. And I was like, well, I think I'm going to run Pisgah, because that's where he goes, Mount Pisgah in Springfield. That's where he runs every day. I'm going to like bump into him, but like, you know, accidentally bump into him, kind of making a joke, but serious, you know? And he's like, okay, you know, it was like that. The next day he calls me and says, hey, were you serious about like running with Cam? I was like, not really. I mean, he runs like 6-minute miles. I'm more like a 9:30 if I'm good, you know? He goes, well, he'll run with you on Monday. And I was like, well, I can't say no. You know, this is a guy that's helped me from a distance get into shape, run 6 miles. Like, it's one of those moments where it's like, well, if I don't, I'll always kick myself, right?
You're definitely saying yes to that.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm like, hell yeah, let's do it. So Cam starts texting me, hey, I'll be there Monday at noon during my lunch break, because he still had a full-time job. Even with, you know, millions of followers, whatever. Really cool about him. He pulls in at 12 on the dot. He pops out. I assumed it was like picnic lunch, like, hey, we're going to have a moment, you know? And he's like, all right, let's go. Hops out of his truck ready to go. I'm like, fuck. So we start running. I'm trying to talk to him, you know, like, we're going through these trails. And I get about a quarter of the way up. I'm like, I'm done. And I run 6 miles a day. It's not like I'm nothing, right? And I also have that grit of being a wrestler. So I'm like, nothing's too hard, right? It was hard. And I get to the point where I'm like, well, this is a horrible failure, right? Like, this is my hero, quote unquote, right? And he's leaving me in the dust. And so I got to the point where I was like, I hope if I just keep him in my sight, because it was like straight up the mountain. If I just keep him in my, like, I'll be okay. So I kept pushing forward. Finally to the point where I'm like, just leave me, bro. Like, I'm not doing this. Like, nobody needs to know. I can just say, yeah, it was a great experience with Cam. Nobody needs to know I failed, right? But I just kept looking. I can still see him. So I kept pushing. And we get to almost the top. And he has this big monument at the top of Pisgah where he jumps every time. And it's on Instagram. It's like it's a thing,
know which one you're talking about.
And have you ever been?
No, never been to Oregon.
It is the best experience ever. But all that to say, he gets to the top, almost to the top. And he's like, hey, how you feeling? I'm like, not good, Cam. Not great at all. And he's like, how are your legs? I was like, not good either, buddy. And he goes, can you get on the monument? I was like, well, I guess we're going to find out. He's like, all right, follow me. So he takes off. He hops up on the monument with ease, like every time. And then I hop up with ease too. And I don't even think about it, right? And I hear him go, man, how was it, Mitch? And I go, this place sucks. And that was it. We run down. He's not even sweating. I mean, we sprint down. I was struggling to keep up. I was asking him about Joe, because that's what all super fans do. Like, hey, what's Joe like? You know, all that kind of stuff. You know, super stupid. Now I'm like,
he's got to get back to work.
Yeah, right. And then, he's got to get back to work. So he's has to, you know, his book was about to come out, Endure, and he's talking about, hey, how long are you going to work? Like, I'm trying to keep up with him, right? We get down to the bottom. I'm like, oh, shoot, let's take a picture, take a selfie. He's not sweating. He leaves, goes back to work. I lay in my rental car for an hour recovering. Legitimately, like, just gassed. So what happened after that changed my life. So I get back to my buddy's house, my family friends. My parents are there too, because it's all family affair. And they're like, Mitch, you're on his Instagram. And I was like, I didn't understand the impact of 1.5 million followers until that moment, right? And he's like, yeah, they put you on his story. And here's Cam with his Instagram. I didn't even know. I was so tired. I didn't even know he was filming. I'm right behind his shoulder. He can see me. Hey, my boy Mitch from Texas wanted to conquer Pisgah. Here he is. And he goes up on the mountain. And then he videos me jumping up. And then it says, hey, Mitch, what do you think about Pisgah? And I go, this place sucks. End of video. My phone starts just ding, 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 ding. Just nonstop text messages. How do you know Cam? What's going on? And one of those people was Esther Federich, who is the owner of the Fed agency, the literary agency I now work for. She said, how do you know Cam? And I know her from the church world. She went to the church that I worked at. So she goes, so I had this amazing experience. I get done, hardest thing I've ever done. I still use that motivation today whenever I run a marathon. I run marathons now. And every time I hit that spot, I'm like, not as hard as that. Not as hard as Pisgah. I can do that. I can do this. Easy. And so I still use that. But I said, what I just experienced, you can't pay for. I knew a guy who knew a guy. So I want to be able, because Esther's the literary agent, I said, let's create something that brings him to people that are fans, that have changed their lives like he changed mine, and give them the opportunity to do the things he does. Lift, run, shoot. He lifts, he runs, he shoots. And so I said, let's do a speaking tour for Endure because it was coming out, and let's do an experience during that speaking tour where he goes and we lift, run, and shoot with him. Like I had a whole thing planned out because I'm an event guy. I built out the website. I built all the tickets, all that kind of stuff. And through that process, I got to know Nick Bear because I was like, Nick Bear's a local celebrity here. He's regional. Now he's huge, right? At the time, he was like regional celebrity. Like he's known. But I was like, I could probably get him on the phone. And so I finagled his cell phone from somebody that I knew. I called him up. Dude, I want you to speak at Cam Hanes' tour. David Goggins is going to be there, which he was. All that stuff. I built this whole thing, got to know all these cool guys, including a Nate Boyer. Like, I built this whole thing out. Never worked out because it just logistically was a nightmare and we would all lose money, right? But I said, there's still something there. We need to create an opportunity for people to connect with Cam as a fan. I think we probably need to make the barrier higher so that you don't get the riffraff. You know, the weirdos, you see them all day long, right? Like the people that are kind of lurking, it's like, we don't want them to be there.
What was that barrier?
Money. Hey, let's get people that are willing to spend some money, that are willing to throw a VIP look at, but I'll give you access 3 days. I put 3 days. You lift with them, you run with them, you shoot with them in Eugene, Oregon. Because I was like, I want to come back. This is my spot. I'd love to be able to pay for a trip back.
I thought you said you hated that place.
No, I love Eugene. I hate Indiana.
Oh, gotcha.
That's where I grew up. When I start telling my story, sometimes
you said Pisgah. You hated Pisgah.
Oh, I hate Pisgah. Never run it again.
But that's in Eugene, Oregon?
That's in Eugene. I hate Pisgah. I'll never run it again, and I haven't. I've done this lift, run, shoot.
You're very hateful for
twice.
Coming from a ministry
I'm looking.
I'm just
Lord
saying.
bless me.
You need to work on that.
I do. Thank you, Shawn. That's quite a challenge. So all that to say,
mushrooms.
Mushrooms do it. All that to say, I've created this experience. We do it the first year. We have 30 people show up. It was wild. This is like all coming to life again. And for the first time in my life, it's like, I think I found it. I found what I'm made to do, which is create experiences that allow people access to people that change their lives. There's things out there that people do and they do them poorly. It's like, yeah, we'll do a Q&A or we'll do this. No, let's do something immersive. Because what we found, just like the experience I was telling you about going to Israel, experiencing that with friends like a Shane Stevens, our lives intersected, and they will always be intersected at that moment of change. That's why events are so amazing. That's why a lift, run, shoot experience is so amazing, because those people that came, we're forever connected to. I've seen multiple people that paid good money. I produced it. I became friends with. I've seen them at Leadville 100 running, that I just happened to be crewing for a friend. They walk past and like, you're running Leadville? Yeah, man. Like, let's go. Like the amount of the environment of going community, intersection of something special that changed your life, and then positive. It's that positive. Man, it's when somebody tries to make you drink, but you don't want to drink. What's it called? Peer pressure. Positive peer pressure. Thank you, Shawn. You're there. Positive peer pressure that comes from that space, and it's changing people's lives.
Yeah.
That's my purpose.
You know what's cool too? Not to cut you off, but like we all have local tribes, right? And it starts with your family, and it starts with your neighborhood, and it kind of expands out to wherever your area that you live in. You have like these tribes, these circles that kind of like go out. But what's really interesting is when you get into an organization where the tribe is like worldwide or even just countrywide, and like we go to Winter Strong every year.
Yeah.
We try to.
That's archery, right?
It's archery, but it's like everything like outdoors. It's like learning how to hunt whitetail. They bring in experts for each thing: trapping, hunting, right? Building a blind in a tree, right?
That's
so
cool.
like you have all these different things, and they have experts for each one. And so you could kind of go in, and each station you can meet somebody very, very interesting, and they'll put on a class. Whatever you're interested in, you'll figure it out. Shooting, pistol, rifle, archery, all of it, and So it's what you see is when you go back every year, the same people that live all over the place, they come back, and sometimes you'll see them at like a TAC event, total archery.
Yep, the
right?
total archery account thing.
So it's like, but it's like now you have a tribe that's bigger, and that's when it's kind of cool. I think having a local tribe is cool, but having like a tribe where you don't only see them once a year,
yes,
it's something special in that, right?
And you guys have common goals. You don't care about what they do. Like you don't look at that. That's where an international or a national tribe, why these experiences are so life changing is. I don't go, hey Shawn, what do you do? I'm like, oh dude, Cam's gonna be here. What kind of bow are we gonna shoot? You know, those types of things that go from a common goal that aren't focused on stuff that the mid 30s to mid 40s people that were sitting there going like, what's the purpose in life? Yeah. That gives us purpose, and I think there's hope in that. And what I missed about the church, I found in events, is the church is filled with people, all different backgrounds. I would have lunch with CEOs of giant corporations that you would never imagine that I have their cell phones numbers. And then I have people that are struggling to get by working at Whataburger, right? Like, those are the people. Yeah. There's such a span, and I couldn't find a place like that except in like a lift, run, shoot experience. Creating these cultivated experiences, because there are people from all different walks of life. It doesn't matter. We don't judge because we're all here for one common goal. And I think that's what's special about it. And I think that's the goal. Ultimately, I don't know if I can change the world, but I know I can change 30 to 40 people at a time. And I think that that's ultimately where I've come. So how I get into literary and entertainment space is I create these experiences. And my boss, Esther, says, all these guys want to write books. Nick Bear is a freaking amazing dude that has a great book in him. And I'm like, dude, you need to talk to Esther. She'll take care of you. Nate Boyer has a great story. You need to talk to Esther. All these people. And she finally calls me and is like, I don't even know who these people are. I'm a girl, right? This is your space. Why don't you come work for me? You can keep doing your event stuff that you love. And you can sign these huge people and find this whole space of fitness, health, athletes, the people that need their stories told, but don't have a path to do it. And so that's what got me here, to where I'm doing stuff that I absolutely love, that I finally found purpose in, where I'm not looking back going, even if I don't make as much money as I want, I think ultimately that connection with people is the most important thing. And the thing that I've missed so much leaving ministry, but I didn't realize how much it impacted me, because like freaking COVID, and then like the biggest financial crisis in the world again, like all these things where you're kind of like going, there's so many distractions, but here I am doing exactly what God put me in this earth to do. It doesn't look like I thought it would, but I'm talking to people that I looked up to growing up. I'm talking to people that I'm fans of first. Like, how is that possible? And all because I said, I want to give people the opportunity to have a shared experience in something that I got to do once, and you couldn't pay money to do. I just happened to meet Cam at Pisgah and run Pisgah with him, which I'll never do again. You know, like genuinely like life-changing moments that put together connections. That's what I think is the solution to the problem. I think we've been told for the last 6 years, you're masculine, you're strong, you're this, you're that. You need to bow down. You need to be less masculine. You need to be less of the nature that you are. And I think there's a balance. Yes, there's that positive masculinity, there's this, but I think if you throw the baby out with the bathwater, which is what we've done for the last, as men, we were told to be less of who we are. We shouldn't have an opinion. Let's just be compliant. We shouldn't have these things that we're innately driven towards. We're told, no. Let's just, chill out. And that takes a toll. That takes a toll on the man. And that takes a toll on even the less masculine man. Because, I don't think I'm a super masculine dude. I'm super strong for the way I look. When I do that powerlifting competition I told you about, I'll send you the videos. When I deadlift 500 pounds, you're going to be like, how the hell did that guy do that? And I'll tell you that I have no idea. It's just the way I've always been. But ultimately, I think that giving men the ability to freely be who they are, that's the goal. And if we can find a way to connect with these people in small levels, I think that's ultimately what you did with me. I mean, I got to know you just randomly because I was at I'm Riley Gaines Literary. We run her thing.
Yeah.
And I get to watch you play pool. Wasn't allowed to play pool, but I got to watch you play pool. And I was like, this guy's cool. That
wasn't my choice.
I'm terrible at pool anyway. It was a good choice. Yeah. And then I see you you were there at the Lift Run Shoot in Austin. You happened to be at Tyler's place at Archery Country. And I was like, dude, that's Shawn. You met my wife there. My kids were there. Like, you always come up in that process. And I think if anything, what you give men, or, not just men, anybody that listens, is you give them the freedom to be who they are and feel the way they need to feel and not to be ashamed of it. That's ultimately, I think, the goal that we have to have as men.
That's beautiful, man. That's really well said.
Thanks, man.
That's fucking awesome. So real quick, I got to wrap this up because I know we got to get out of here.
Everybody's sleeping in the studio. It's okay.
No, this was really good. But real quick, I want to go back to the Guinness Book of World Records.
Oh, that's the one thing?
That's the one thing.
You don't want to know.
I do want to know. Okay. I do want to know.
Oh my goodness, this story. Okay, so I've told this story. I have it in my office. So I was going to break the Guinness World Record for largest Easter egg hunt because I'm a children's pastor. So I got all these kids on Easter Sundays like, you got to do an Easter egg hunt. That's just the standard in most like evangelical, big non-denominational churches. I got to get 10,000 eggs. And I became the king of Easter egg hunts. Well, that didn't work out. I got 1 million eggs. I got a bunch of sponsors. I could never find a place that would let me bring 20,000 people out to break a Guinness World Record for largest Easter egg hunt. And by the way, if you look it up, the last people that tried it, there was like fist fights and like, it was horrible. So dodged a bullet on that. So I decided to do largest gathering of people dressed up like rabbits is my Easter egg, is my Guinness World Record. Because I had all of these kids that would come to church because they, parents make them, I decided to make it fun. And I had what we called a record-breaking Easter. I themed the Easter, and I created these Easter bunny suits because there's rules after rules after rules that Guinness requires you.
Really?
They had to wear full Easter bunny suits to count.
Like fully covering everything?
Fully covered. Booties, head, ears.
How much does one of those costumes cost?
$150. The lowest I could find on Amazon. So.
What? So you guys paid for all of these? Or
Okay, Shawn, thanks for asking, because this is where anybody that wants to hire me for anything, I'm a problem solver here. I looked up hazmat suits because they have booties, they have hoods, and they're fully covered. So I found 1,000 hazmat suits, but the thing about hazmat suits is there's not kid sizes. So the lowest size that hazmat suits go, and I think after COVID, I probably owned the most hazmat suits of anybody in the world that I threw away because what do you do with all those? Anyway, I got 1,000 hazmat suits, mediums, because that's the lowest they could get. I got a guy to help me who was like a graphic artist. He runs his own print company. We made a pink belly on the belly. I had bunny ears, and I figured out the tail was, those party globes that open up and people hang? They're like little like tissue paper. They open up all the way.
Yes.
So if you get a pink one, small enough, and you tack it to the back of a hazmat suit, it falls and it looks exactly like a bunny. So the requirements of Guinness are extensive, and I did not want to pay for an adjudicator who just automatically says you're, amazing, officially amazing.
Well, how does that work? Do they send out like a representative from Guinness?
It all costs money. So it would have been $10,000 just for the fee to bring somebody out, plus travel, plus all those things from Ireland. So
from Ireland, that's where they're headquartered.
That's where they're headquartered. England, UK.
Okay.
So they'll probably be mad that I said Ireland, UK. Whatever. The Guinness,
it's on the other side of the planet. We don't give a shit over here.
Yeah,
whatever.
I mean, Losers. It's not USA. We don't care. So, so basically, it would have cost like, 30 grand to bring somebody out to give you a plaque at the moment. And it wasn't that big a deal. It was like, hey, let's get all these kids to wear bunny suits and take a picture. Film. They require you to do like 5 minutes of timer. They have to all be official. Like ears have to be right. They have to look like bunnies. I had them in groups of 50, and I had to have a judge in each to make sure they were all good. And they all had to sign witness statements. Like it was a wild experience. I had to have 2 counters with little clickers. And I had to have a video of the kids coming in, counting them. So we get to the point where I was like, it's taken forever to get this many kids with suits, everything. They're set. Everything's ready to go. All right, let's start the timer. And the people that were clicking go, no. And they give me their little counters, and they were off. So one was like 270. The other was like 244. And I was like, this isn't great. So no. Because I had to film it, that has to be submitted. And if I do anything wrong, they don't give me the record. And I've spent all this money and time. It's record-breaking history. I'm going to break the record. I built all this stuff up to do it. So I basically go, all right, we're going to do it. We're going to do the 5 minutes because these kids, it was getting hot. Like hazmat suits are hot. Yeah, my daughter was the first one to put one on.
Knows, even if they never put one on.
Well, these kids were looking like they were not going to last.
Was this in Texas?
This was in Texas during Easter.
Shit, you're crazy,
dude. Yeah, crazy.
You're a madman.
I mean, thank you.
I love it.
Forcing kids to put on hazmat suits. Thank you. So basically, all that to say, I counted down. They did the thing. We got a video. Cool. All right, kids, keep your suits on. Walk through the line again. So we could count them officially because I needed the timers to see. So they did that all again, got the number 255. I had to get 250 to break the record.
255, that's not very much. I think you could go to like a Playboy Mansion party and probably break
Shawn,
this.
where were you? Where were you in 2018? That would have been a way cooler record. So the kids, we broke it. Great. I submitted everything. It was like a 30-page document. I wrote my thesis for my master's degree on it. Like it was that thick. I spent all that work on it.
Wow.
I submitted that for my thesis. So get the record. I have the plaque. I take pictures of it on Instagram. Like I feel like top shit. The kids are all asking me, parents are all asking me, hey, when are we going to be in the book? The Guinness World Record book. And I was like, well, let me find out. And so I Google the Guinness World Record. They have a whole login page. You find your record and you can see the picture that you took and the name of everything. And I couldn't find it anywhere. And I'm looking. Finally, like page 3 or 4, it says, largest gathering of people dressed up like rabbits.
Whoa.
And it says 1149, Zhang, China. I was like, what the fuck? Zhang, China had beat me. Not only beat me, but beat me by almost 1,000 kids. So I broke the record. Okay, this is where it gets crazier. I broke the record March 31st, 2018. Zhang, China broke the record April 1st, 2018. The next fucking day.
Yeah. Fuck you, American.
Holy shit. So it was a whole thing, and I was like, my heart sunk, all this stuff.
I think this is game on now.
So I started looking into it, and I was like, oh wait, China's the international date line. So they're like a full day difference.
Oh.
So if you fly to China on a Saturday from America, it's Sunday, the same time.
Okay.
Technically, they broke the record 2 hours after I broke my record.
Just by chance?
Yes.
Like you have no fuck. They didn't know you were doing what you were doing.
I also own the record for shortest time ever holding a Guinness World Record.
Shut the fuck up! That's so crazy.
Yeah, dude.
Like the intersecting.
2 hours later.
What
2
are
hours
the chances?
later. The chances are crazy, and I can't tell you how frustrating it is. But I've been gone long enough to laugh about it that I still have the plaque, but I'm not even anywhere near ever getting that record back.
I'm pissed off.
Yeah.
Are you pissed off?
Yeah, let's break something.
I think we should get the guy who set that one up on with you.
Okay, so I also challenged that. So I filed a formal complaint. Of
course, you're American.
I filed a complaint. I was like, there is how hard it was for me to get 255. I understand China. You know, they can force people to do whatever they want, you know, allegedly. And so 1,100, 1,200 kids.
What are the fucking odds?
Yeah. Here's the other crazy thing, Shawn. Let me go deeper into it. I created the record. So you can submit a record to Guinness to say, hey, I want to break this. The record that I made didn't exist before I broke it. So how would they have ever known it existed? So
you created the record of something that wasn't there.
I submitted the record to be broken.
And
it
they
didn't
broke
exist.
it in 2
And they
hours.
broke it in 2 hours later. Yeah. So
somebody talked.
Hey, I'll you work on that.
Have you questioned your wife? Just saying.
I mean, I probably posted way too much on social media about how cool I am about it, but
For 2 hours.
Here's the thing. I never realized that people would actually ask me this is silly, but I never thought anybody would ask me, what'd you get the record for? I just assumed people would be like, oh, you're a Guinness World Record holder. They wouldn't be like, what is it?
Yeah, we want to know.
Most people dressed up like rabbits. It's like, what?
All that effort, and China just stole it.
China just stole it from me, dude.
They steal everything.
But they gave us iPhones.
That's why nobody likes those guys.
Anyway, there you go. That's the record, the Guinness record.
It's beautiful.
If you want
to, story. I don't care.
If you want to hang it up in here, you can. It's worth nothing except pride. But I have it in my office.
We'll put it on that square. Right
that empty
I want
square.
you to sign it. 2 hours. Champions. I love it, Mitch. Thank you so much.
Man, I appreciate you.
This was fucking an awesome conversation.
So
I can't wait till you come back. We got a lot more to talk about that we didn't get to.
I know.
Tell these folks where they can find you, where they can check out your podcast, these groups you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Shawn, for having me. So there's a couple things. I have a podcast called Dad Bods and Dumbbells, which I think that's what we were going to talk a ton about TRT and all the cool things about working out, which I'd love to talk more about. So basically it's a comedy and educational podcast. My buddy Bart is a fitness expert and he does all the fitness stuff. He's the dumbbell. I'm the dad bod, obviously. And we talk a lot about life, family, guy stuff. It was something that we brought together from all the stuff we just talked about. It's like, we just need a space to be able to communicate and talk. And it's become very successful. It's been a lot of fun. So check out Dad Bods and Dumbbells on anywhere you can get a podcast. And then Run with Mitch. That's my Instagram. That's a whole other story. I ran a marathon a month in 2023 and kind of became a persona. I started a company called Big Boys Run 2 because I'm a big boy and watch me go. It's not pretty, but I get it done. So check me out. I'd love for you guys to check out my podcast, but I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, man. This has been great. Whiskey's been good.
Cheers.
Cheers, brother.
Episode 2 in the book.